Hi, friend. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Kayla Tychsen, and I help parents have more confidence in their parenting, more connection with their kids, and more joy in their home. So subscribe so you don't miss these videos. And if you're a parent looking for support, check out the other videos on my channel for evidence-based support for raising kids in a way that's respectful, that's introspective, and that ultimately leads to deeper relationships with your children.
Cross your day on Virgin Radio Stars.
Hey, this is Rihanna.
This is Start Living Right with Maya Nassar.
Today, we're going to be talking more about how stress impacts our parenting. I'm here with our guest, Kayla Tychsen. She's a certified parent coach. Hey, Kayla.
Hey, Maya. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here with us. It's so great to see you again. How have you been?
Really good. Yeah, I've been really good. Thanks so much.
Happy to hear that. And we know that this is a very common issue that parents all over the world face, especially in Lebanon. So our first question for you, how would you define stress in the context of parenting, and what are some of the most common signs that we might miss?
Yeah, so stress is that experience of internal or external pressures, and they really put a tax on our emotional, mental, and physical resources. So when we feel like we don't have enough to meet the demands placed on us. Now, not all stress is bad, and actually manageable stress can be really good and can actually increase our resilience. But stress that is too much, too fast, for too long, or with too little support can impact us negatively if we can't process it. So, those common signs for us as parents that we sometimes miss are that irritability, snapping at our children or our spouse over,
or anyone.
Exactly, over maybe small things or things that wouldn't normally affect us. We might feel numb or disconnected. We might struggle to feel present and enjoy our children. I know for me, playing with my children becomes really hard when I'm stressed.
Exactly, yeah. You can't focus properly.
Exactly. And so we might feel body tension, we might have headaches or stomach aches, or we might just feel constantly overwhelmed.
Right.
And so, sometimes we can normalize these things as parents and just think that this is just what parenting is. But these are actually red flags that our nervous system is under too much strain.
Exactly. What happens inside our bodies and our brains when we live in a state of chronic stress?
Yeah, so that stress that's too much, too fast, for too long, or with too little support can keep our nervous system in a state of activation.
Right.
So it can be that sympathetic activation, which is that fight, flight reactions, or it can be in shutdown, which is that freeze or collapsed state. And in both of these states, we actually have elevated stress levels, that cortisol and that adrenaline. And so this can impair digestion. It can mean we have a tight chest and throat, shallow breathing, tightened muscles and body aches. And when we have these stress hormones in our bodies for extended periods of time, it can actually lead to more severe health issues.
Exactly.
Even triggering things like, autoimmune responses.
Yeah, very true.
So important to really be aware of this and be intentional. And so, in our brains, our amygdala might be overreactive, and that's our threat center. So it's those little things like we talked about that are setting us off.
Exactly.
And also the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for that reasoning, that empathy, and that impulse control, it gets less blood flow. And so it might actually make it much harder to problem solve.
Right.
So this is where that brain fog comes in when we're under stress. It might be really hard to think clearly and make decisions.
Exactly. How does chronic stress affect the way we show up emotionally and physically for our children?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So when we're under chronic stress, our emotional bandwidth shrinks. So that's our capacity to deal with those additional stressors that come up, which could be something like our child's tantrum or our child pushing boundaries. Our ability to manage those things in a calm way can decrease. And so we have less patience. Again, we're more easily triggered, and we might unintentionally overreact in these situations, or we might withdraw from the relationship with our children and disconnect. Or it might be this swinging from back and forth, that inconsistency. 1 minute we're withdrawing, the next minute we're overreacting.
Right, yeah.
And so physically, we might be present with our child, be there, but we're not actually available emotionally. And I think, we can relate to this when we're feeling overwhelmed and we just try to distract ourselves, or we're feeling so fatigued that we just need to, need to disconnect. But this actually impacts attunement, which is our ability to read and respond to our child's emotional needs. And so kids really can feel when a parent is just going through the motions instead of being truly engaged and present and connected.
Right. So we were talking previously about what happens to our bodies and our brains when we live in a state of constant stress. In what ways might we unintentionally communicate our stress to our kids?
Yeah, so children are so sensitive to nonverbal communication. So that's all those things we're communicating without even saying a word.
True.
They sense our stress through our tone of voice, our facial expressions, our body posture, the tension in our bodies. And even if we're not saying that we're stressed, and even if we try to act calm, they can still actually sense our stress. And research actually shows that they can even pick up our stress for themselves.
Right. So we transfer our stress to our children.
Exactly. And so there's this saying that children are expert observers but horrible interpreters.
Oh, I see. Yeah, very true.
And so they can pick up on things so easily. They are observing everything we're doing and saying, but they might actually misinterpret our overreactions as something wrong with them, or pick up on this feeling that they're not safe, even if the stress that we're experiencing has nothing to do with them, right? But they can still see it.
It's like a toxic environment.
Exactly. And they don't yet have the ability to logically figure out what's going on. So they a lot of times make all these assumptions that are actually not true.
Right. What is co-regulation, and why is this such an important tool for families under stress?
Yeah, so, a lot of times when our stress gets picked up by our children, it can show up in behaviors like clinginess, tantrums, aggression, attention seeking. A lot of times these are really frustrating behaviors for us, right? And they can even activate us further and dysregulate us further. But co-regulation is where a calm, regulated nervous system helps to bring another nervous system back down to that parasympathetic nervous system, that calm state. And so for young children, this means that they're oftentimes borrowing our calm. They're borrowing their parents' calm through our voice, through our touch, through our presence, and just being connected.
Right.
And so co-regulation is so important when there's a lot of stress, because children don't yet have the ability to self-regulate on their own until their nervous systems are mature, which takes a pretty long time for that to happen. And so Co-regulation requires the parent to regulate their own nervous systems so that we feel safe and calm, and then we can connect with our child and help them feel safe. And when a child feels safe, they are more able to calm those big emotions. And so there's this big misunderstanding I've seen that parents can think that co-regulation is just getting our child to calm down. But actually, as the parent, we have to intentionally slow down and use those calming strategies ourselves and shift out of that fight, flight, freeze responses ourselves in order to help our children regulate.
Right, because when we are stressed, we can transfer that down to our kids, as you explained previously.
Exactly.
So this is a very important subject, something lots of parents face on a daily basis, especially when they are stressed, and they have to also be, good parents and be positive around their children. What practical everyday tools can parents use to help release or process stress?
Yeah, such a good question. And I want to acknowledge that talking about all the impacts of stress on us and our kids can cause us stress.
Oh, I see, right.
Especially when we're living in a place like Lebanon where there can be unpredictability and there
instability,
exactly. And some of these extra stressors, but it's not hopeless. And so there is hope. There are very practical things that we can do to process and release that stress from our bodies. So some simple things we can do are things like breath work, really practicing taking those deep breaths. Exactly. And expanding our bellies oftentimes, especially as women, right? We're taught to suck in our stomachs.
Suck it in.
But we really want to let that go so that our diaphragm can lower and our lungs can fill with oxygen, and we can get those deep breaths, and that's going to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, that vagus nerve that helps us to calm. We can do grounding practices like paying attention to our senses and really taking in the information around us through our senses, what we can see, what we can hear, what we can feel. We can get outside barefoot and things like that.
Yeah, walking in the grass.
Exactly. And just releasing tension that way. Physical movement is also so important. Things like walking, dancing, shaking our arms and legs, stretching, strength training. And I know that you do a lot of that.
Yes, I do.
You're an expert at that. And those kinds of things can be so helpful to discharge those stress hormones. Also things like vocalization, so humming, singing, even big, deep sighs, and laughing too.
Yes.
Those belly laughs, which our children usually love. So we can really do those kinds of things with them and make it fun and playful. And one thing that I want to emphasize, because it can feel hard as a parent when there's a million things to do.
Right.
And then you add, maybe political instability and jets breaking the sound barrier over your home. And it can feel like it's impossible to rest. But this idea of taking micro rests, so taking these 5-minute breaks to reset, even if you can't take a long nap or something like that, or even if it's not, an extended rest, just taking these moments to just sit and be and not try to accomplish our to-do list. I think moms are really great at multitasking. They're really great at utilizing the time that they have to get the to-do list done. But if we can break out of those patterns and let things go undone and actually make a practice of just sitting and being, maybe even without our phones, without
exactly
scrolling, right? And just looking at, the trees outside.
Mindfulness.
Exactly. Listening to the birds chirping, these kinds of things, and just be still for a moment. This can be so, so helpful. And, just a personal example, those jets breaking the sound barrier, it's real and it's terrifying. And
it is.
Even as an adult, when we know that it's not maybe physically dangerous, that sound just reverberates through our bodies, right? When that happens.
It does, yeah.
And so, there were times where my children were playing outside when a jet would, break the sound barrier over our house. And what we would do, so I would, of course, immediately go to them as they were, in shock and so scared, and comfort them. And we would go inside and turn on some dance music and have a dance party.
Oh, wow.
And then we would, after we just got all of that energy out and were exhausted, we'd just collapse on the floor and then just start laughing so hard and talking about how loud it was and how crazy it was.
Right.
And really just those elements of that physical closeness and comfort, the dancing and physical movement that was releasing stress from the body, and then that connection and that verbal processing of our experiences were just so helpful in those moments. And so it can be really practical like that, and it can be, also this beautiful way to connect with our children in these moments of stress.
Exactly. That's a great example. Thank you so much, Kayla, for your very helpful advice. If any of our listeners want to get in touch with you for more advice or follow you on social media, how can they reach out?
Yeah, find me at Your Conscious Parent Coach. I share a lot of practical tips and strategies, and you can go ahead and DM me. I'd love to connect with you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for watching my video. Leave any questions you have in the comments and I will get back to you. If you are needing support in your parenting and you're interested in working with me, check out my website, www.yourconsciousparentcoach.com. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video.